The Russian economy collapsed in 2023. Recession? What's going to happen? Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today in this video, we will talk about the Russian economy collapse in 2023. Russia's economy is not likely to return to pre-war levels before the end of this decade, as the Ukraine war and stricter sanctions worsen long-standing economic deficiencies, scope ratings said in a report seen by Reuters on Friday. Since Russia's unprovoked and unjustified invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, the Council has adopted 8 packages of sanctions against Russia and Belarus. The sanctions aim at weakening Russia's ability to finance the war and specifically target the political, military, and economic elites responsible for the invasion. The restrictive measures do not target Russian society. That is why areas such as food, agriculture, health, and pharma are excluded from the imposed restrictive measures. Estimates from diverse sources show that the restrictive measures taken in Europe and elsewhere against Russia are working as expected, and the results are visible through economic indicators. By the end of 2023, gross domestic product (GDP) will be about 8% below where output was in 2021, according to the credit rating watchdog's forecast. The Russian economy expanded by 4.7% in 2021, according to Federal Statistics Service Rosstat. After 2023, potential growth will drop to 1.5% a year from the 1.5 to 2.0 achieved before the war, the agency said. The Russian government, helped by the Bank of Russia, has used windfall export revenues to mitigate the immediate domestic economic impact of the war in Ukraine and sanctions, but the longer-term outlook has worsened, said scope analyst Levin Kamarian. Accelerating capital outflows, limited access to Western technology, and negative demographic trends will continue to hamper growth and compound the effects of the war and sanctions in the absence of any significant economic restructuring, according to the report. About 4 times as much private capital, $64.2 billion, flowed out of Russia in the first quarter of 2022 alone compared with the same quarter last year, said the report. The Scope report predicts that the private sector will withdraw more capital from Russia this year than the $152 billion pulled out in 2014, when Russia annexed the Crimea. The Russian economy is shrinking. According to independent analysis by the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund (IMF), and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD), 2022 is a bad year for the Russian economy. By the end of 2022, Russia's gross domestic product (GDP) is expected to drop by at least 3.4% in the best-case scenario and by up to 5.5% in the worst-case scenario. Russia's economy will continue to shrink in 2023. Its GDP is forecast to decline by 2.3% year-on-year in the best-case scenario and by 4.5% in the worst-case scenario. Declining trade, soaring inflation. The restrictive measures target the import and export of certain goods. The list of banned products is designed to maximize the negative impact of the sanctions on the Russian economy while limiting the consequences for EU businesses and citizens. Figures are proving that these restrictive measures are yielding results. Both the World Bank and the IMF estimate that in 2022 Russian trade in goods and services is set to decline significantly. In 2023, exports will continue to decline while imports are expected to be higher than in 2022. Russia's imports and exports from 2018 to 2023. Estimations show that Russia's inflation rate will increase sharply by the end of 2022, reaching almost 14%. Forecasts for 2023 vary from 5% IMF to 6.8% OECD. The war on Russia's economy is working. 9 months into Russian President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine, the damage done to the world's 11th largest economy is extensive. Leading Russian banks have been cut out of the global financial system. Some $300 billion of central bank reserves are frozen, and hundreds of foreign companies have departed. Pot shortages have hobbled the auto industry and threatened commercial aviation. In the wake of Putin's mobilization order, tens of thousands of young workers have fled the country. An OECD forecast released this week projects Russia's economy will contract by 5.6% in 2023. The economic punishment inflicted on Russia hasn't stopped the pummeling of Ukraine. But sanctions have weakened Russia's standing as a world power, dissuaded ostensibly impartial nations from aligning with its government, and sowed doubts about Putin's leadership among Russian elites. Convincing them to press for an end to the war will require the US and Europe to tighten the squeeze even more. Since February, Sanctions have raised the cost of the war by reducing Moscow's ability to buy what it needs, while making the market perilous for outsiders. China, India, and Turkey are importing Russian crude, but at a steep discount. And Russia has struggled to redirect gas exports once bound for Europe. Russia's imports of technology it needs to sustain its war machine, let alone spark future innovation, have been effectively cut off for months. Never mind that what it can buy when it comes to electronics components is now often faulty. Moscow will adapt, but not swiftly. Even so, for now, the direct impact on the war remains limited. Squeezing the world's largest hydrocarbon exporter, one with a hefty current account surplus, requires targeting those exports, a process that is beginning in earnest only now. Moreover, Russians had already suffered a grim decade, with real household disposable incomes peaking around 2012. So while the economy is expected to contract this year by 3.9%, there is less distance to fall. There's also the inescapable fact that Putin is more than willing to sacrifice future economic growth for his personal aims and can easily silence dissent. Sanctions rarely produce swift political change or an instant end to conflict. With Russia's forces in retreat, it's critical that the West ratchet up the pressure. Most obviously, the US and its allies should continue to arm and financially support Ukraine. They should also encourage Russia's worsening brain drain. At least 350,000 people have already fled Putin's ill-advised mobilization order, causing consumer confidence to plunge. Western governments can accelerate the process by offering more humanitarian visas, added support for Russian students, and incentives for scientists and tech professionals to move abroad. Not only would Western economics benefit, but Russia's labor and skills shortages would intensify. Europe should further work to close sanctions loopholes. To cite one example, there's evidence that the Russian military is importing home appliances to neighboring countries and using their microchips to make up for the loss of access to Western semiconductors. Rigorous action will also be needed to enforce EU crude sanctions and a US-led price cap on Russian oil, which would extend a ban on selling insurance and other services to ships that fail to comply. Above all, Western governments and their partners need to stick together. Russia's economy is hollowing out, and the war is not going Moscow's way. Putin still thinks Ukraine's supporters will crack first. The West must prove him wrong. So this was our today's video. I hope you all liked this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe my channel. And also share it with your friends and family. We will be back soon with a new video. Till then, keep supporting and take care.